Hi everyone, it's Paul from This Designer. Today I'm going to show you how I built this DIY dust filter. So if you watch DIY videos on YouTube, you've probably seen a build similar to this. This style of air filter was popularized during COVID. Some people were looking at ways to basically build a cheaper air filter for use in the home during COVID. Someone come up with this idea of just kind of like sticking some filters on a box with a fan on top, and actually they perform most of the time better than a lot of the commercial air filters that are available. I want to give a shout out to the 3D Handyman YouTube channel. He has put an incredible effort into documenting how to build these, how they perform, and what are the best options to get the most out of your air filters. He also has an Etsy shop, which is the 3D Handyman, and he sells kits for these in the US. So first of all, why did I build this? Well, I am in a 5 meter by 3 meter by 2.4 meter shed here, and it is going to house everything, all of the woodwork that I do, but also all of the metalwork that I do. And I do not want my metalworking machines getting contaminated by wood dust, because that is basically going to wear them out quicker. I noticed that just after a few projects of like building my workbench and a few other bits and bobs, that the room was already covered in a thin layer of dust, and I am hooking up all of my power tools to my Festool dust extractor. So even with that, dust is getting everywhere, which means that it's not only getting on my tools, but I'm also breathing it in. But thankfully I'm probably not breathing it in, because if you will see from any of my DIY build videos, I put a lot of emphasis on PPE, especially wearing a mask when you're doing woodworking. I see a huge amount, I would say the majority of YouTubers that are doing woodworking, they are not wearing a mask, and it shocks me to be honest with you, because even when you've got these machines hooked up to dust extractors, they are kicking out so much dust. It is the stuff that you can't see that is really bad for you. Even if you think you're collecting a lot of dust, you know, the stuff that you can actually pick up and see, you're probably not collecting the stuff that you can't see, and that is really dangerous stuff. So you'll probably see in some of my recent videos, I invested in a 3M VersaFlow PAPR dust mask, which is amazing. I will do a full review on that once I've used it a little bit more, but hopefully that will cover me for breathing in, but it still doesn't solve the issue of getting my lathe covered in wood dust. So that is the main reason why I built this. I wanted to keep my shop clean. I'm not too worried about breathing the stuff in because I'm always wearing a VersaFlow, but this is going to keep the shop clean, but it is also going to help me. Like now, when I'm filming, I don't have my mask on, I may drop something on the floor and it may kick up a little bit of dust. I know that at least having this on is helping me somewhat. So I would recommend everyone to build one of these if you are doing woodwork and you've got a workshop, because they are quick and easy to build, they're cheap, and they do an amazing job, as I will show you later on in the video. So that's the why I built it, but how did I build it? Well, as you can see, it's a pretty simple build. This is just using some scrap plywood that I've got left over. I've got 1 inch thick F7 rated filters, and then I've got a Cloud Lift S12 fan at the top here. The reason why I chose AC Infinity, it is a little bit more expensive compared to some of the other options that are available on Amazon. I like this brand. I've got a few of their other products. I like the fact that it does come with a remote. I like the fact that it is nice and quiet. I've got it actually running now on, I think it's on the setting 2 or 3. So it is still actually, improving the air quality in this room while I'm doing a video, which is pretty cool. And even at the highest fan speed, it's still not too bad, as I will show you in the sound readings. The filters themselves are quite expensive. I got these custom made from Filters Direct. If you're in the UK, I'd highly recommend them. You can send them any sort of measurements that you need, and they will basically make you filters. These are F7 rated, which is the equivalent to a MERV 13 to 14 rating, which is kind of what you want to be looking for if you're building one of these. F7 or like MERV 13 to 14, it will filter down to around about 0.3, 0.4. The F7 at I think about 0.5 microns particle size, it has an efficiency of I think about 60 to 70%, which is good enough for me. Now I opted for the 1 inch thick filters because I want to try and keep the footprint of this as small as possible. It does stick out quite a bit from the wall, which is a little bit annoying. You could ceiling mount it, but again, I think I'd probably be hitting my head on it if I did have it ceiling mounted. So at the moment, I've just got it hanging off my French cleat here. So apart from the fan, the filter and the plywood, the only other things I've got is just some 3D printed latches. I've got some latches at the top here just to hold the fan in place, and some foam weather strip just to put a seal around the filters. And that is it. Now the filters work out, including delivery, £16 each. It'll be interesting to see how long they last. I will be doing an update on this. I bought 8 of them for £130. So I've got 4 set aside to replace them when I need to. I think this is probably going to last me a good few years. So you could probably look at it at around about £60 per year maybe. So what I'm going to do now is show you the build of making it, and then we'll go over the readings and kind of my experience of using this for a few months. So I'm going to start off with just cutting the outer frame, and this just uses strips of plywood, and by cutting the outer ones a little bit smaller than the inner ones, it just gives me a little bit of an edge that will seat against the filters. Now I realise I can actually use my router fence that I made as a stop block for cutting these strips. I'm going to get a more permanent solution. I think I'm going to design and make some sort of repeat stop block for this MFT table, because it would come in real handy. Putting it together, I'm just using wood glue and just some nails just to hold it in place. And I just repeat this process for each of the 4 frame supports. Then I give it just a quick round over just to soften that edge. Now it's time to cut a hole in the top panel to fit the fan. So first of all, I'm just cutting out a rough square with a jigsaw. Then that will allow me to get in and make a little bit more of an accurate cut around the panel. And then I'm going to finish it off with just a 3D printed jig and a flush trim bit on the router, just so I've got an absolute perfect fit here. Now I think that there are probably jigs that you can use to use the router as kind of like a compass, where you can just kind of like cut out a circle like that. I'm probably going to make one of those in the future because it would come in handy for little jobs like this. Now it's just time to fix the top and bottom panels onto the frame beams. I'm just using some screws. Now, because I'm screwing along the layers of the plywood, I actually split it a few times. You can see that I'm just putting a clamp across the layers where I'm going to be screwing it into. So just be aware of that. Even the pilot hole didn't seem to help with the plywood splitting, because it's probably pretty old plywood now that's got a little bit wet, so it just starts to deteriorate. I'm just doing one last round over on all of the edges just to soften things up. I really do love the router table for this. This would have been a little bit difficult to do it handheld. Then it's just a quick sand, and now I'm putting on the weather strip. This is just some regular weather strip that you'll probably use on your doors and your windows at home. I'm just putting it around the top panel here for the fan. I've got a really nice fit for that. And then I'm putting it around all 4 sides for each of the filters here. And these little 3D printed parts at the bottom are just so I could run the weather stripping along the bottom, so it creates a seal around all edges of the filter. Lastly, I've just 3D printed some brackets to hold the fan in place, and then it's just time to put in the latches. Again, these are 3D printed just to hold the filters in place. I did originally plan to put this on the ceiling, but for now I'm just going to make a little French cleat bracket just so I can attach this to the French cleats on the wall. You can see I'm just cutting it out roughly with the jigsaw, and now I'm just screwing the brackets into the air filter. You can see this is how it clips on and hangs off the French cleat. And I've just got a little bit of a support piece of wood there just to give it a little bit more support.
And I want to take a quick pause to thank the sponsor of today's video, PCBWay. They offer a huge range of services from 3D printing, PCB manufacturing, and other services for any maker or startup. From CNC machining to injection molding, they can handle pretty much anything you need. On top of that, they offer low volume orders and fast turnaround times for all of their services, which is great for those one-off prototypes or jigs. Check out PCBWay.com today.
So there you go, a very, very simple build. So let's go over kind of my experience of using this for the last few months. I would say that I'm really, really happy with it. I have taken readings at the start when I first installed these filters, and just today, after a few months use, I have taken the readings again. There has been a small decrease in the airspeed that I'm getting through these filters, but not by much. Now you can see that I've actually written the airspeed on this. What I've noticed, and you can actually probably see it in the video, is that the top section of these filters is not actually getting any airflow through it, and I can confirm that with the air meter readings. Now I think I know why we are getting 0 airflow through this top section of the filter. It's probably because of the orientation I've got the fan. So there's 2 ways you can orientate the fan. You can either have it so it is sucking air into the filter box and it is blowing the air out through the filters, or you can turn the fan around and have it blowing out of the filter box, which would then suck the air in through the filters and then obviously be exhausted by the fan. Now I believe that exhausting the air out of the filter box and sucking the air from the outside through the filters first, you may get a higher airflow. But the problem with that is that you add a lot of turbulence to the air in the room, and it could actually cause a lot of the dust that is actually settled on things to become airborne again. So I didn't want to do that, so I've got the fan sucking air in to the inside of the box, and then it's blown it out through the filters, and obviously it's just creating a very, very gentle breeze as the air is exiting through the filters. This is obviously not that efficient. I think what could probably solve this is by just offsetting the fan a little bit more, building this a little bit longer. I wanted to keep the footprint of this as small as possible. I'm not too concerned because I can just take this filter off and I can just flip it around and this will be used again. Not too much of an issue, but something you might want to think about if you are building your own. Maybe you want to offset the fan just a little bit. You can see I've got about 4 or 5 inches of unused filter space here, so maybe that's how much you'd want to space the fan away from the top section of the filter. Now I can see that it's definitely working, and this is crap that is not going into my lungs. You can see that there is a slight discoloration to the filters, so it's definitely doing a really good job. I measured the airspeed across the filter, and then I averaged it out across the readings, and then I combined that with the filter area, and that will give us the CFM, and we can obviously convert that as well to meters cubed per hour as well, which I think is the typical measurement that I'm seeing with commercial air filters. So I'm getting on average about 1.12 meters per second airspeed across this filter. When I first installed it, it was about 1.16. So not really too much of a decrease, to be honest with you. And there is a little bit of user error as well with the way that you're holding the airspeed meter, so looks like not much of a decrease at the moment. So I'm just going to tell you the calculations that we've got here. So 1.12 meters per second, that comes out to about 1600 CFM, and that converts into 2770 meters cubed per hour. I'm comparing the performance of this to what I was thinking of buying in a commercial setting. One of the common ones is the Axminster air filter that they have. I'm looking at the professional one, which was £250, and the Axminster Professional tops out at 1774 meters cubed per hour. We are getting an extra 1000 meters cubed per hour, so you can see that that is quite a big increase in performance, and this is with the fan at its full speed. When it's at like 2 or 3 like it is now, it's probably doing like 10% of what it can do at full fan speed. I did take readings at half fan speed, and that did correlate with pretty much a reduction of 50% in the airspeed that I'm getting. So as you are going down in the fan speed, you obviously are going to be decreasing the airspeed through these filters. At the full fan speed setting, comparing it to the full fan speed setting of the Axminster, yeah, we're getting 1000 more meters cubed per hour, which is going to mean more air changes per hour, which is exactly what you want from these type of machines. And in this short clip, you can see it in action. I'm just sweeping up my workshop, and it's not really kicking up too much dust that I can see with my eyes, but I've got a air quality meter, and you can see that it is increasing, and it's detecting more particles in the air. I stop sweeping and I turn this on, and you can just see how quickly it drops the particles in the air, and it brings the air quality down to very, very good, but better than what it was before. So this does work really, really well. For the sound test at the max fan speed, we're pretty much even with the Axminster Professional one. That has a max decibel of 68, and I also recorded 68 decibel at the highest fan speed. At half speed with the AC Infinity, I measured 57 decibel. The lowest fan speed on the Axminster Professional is 62 decibel, and settings below the half speed on the AC Infinity just become more and more quiet until it's practically silent on settings 1 or 2. Although you probably wouldn't run it at 1 and 2 because the airflow is very, very low. Probably just something you'd want to have on in the background all the time. But when you're actually working, you probably do want to pump this up to, you know, half speed or really full speeds to get the best benefit of the air extraction. So I could not be happier with this build. It's a little bit of an investment. I think that you could easily do this cheaper by using a cheaper fan. I think that the ones that you can get from Amazon for like £40–50, they're gonna work. They're probably going to be a little bit noisy. Maybe they won't last as long. The motor isn't going to be sealed to help to protect it from the dust like with like the AC Infinity. But these are just nice perks to have. And I think that you can't really get away from the cost of the filters. That is probably going to be the most expensive thing. But yeah, this is your health. In my opinion, you can't really put a price on health. So it's a very cheap DIY build. It performs better than the commercial offerings that are in a similar price range. And there's nothing stopping you from scaling this up and making it even more efficient. One thing I've seen people do, and I might do it in the future, this has got filters on all 4 sides. It does make it quite boxy, which takes up a lot of real estate against this wall here. What I've seen some people do is literally just run filters along their ceiling. The thing you need to realise realise is that you don't actually need the fan like directly next to the filters. You know, you could have a run of filters along the ceiling here, and you could have a fan linked to some hosing that is sucking in the air and channeling it along into the filters. So my idea was that because this top ceiling section probably not going to be used that much, I was thinking I could create quite a shallow filter box that just has a filter on the top and the bottom. And I mean, I could probably fit along here of these size filters, probably like 15 or 16. Obviously 8 on the top and 8 on the bottom. And what you could do is you could just put like an inline fan, you know, somewhere up in the ceiling, have some hosing connecting to this kind of long filter run, and then you'd be getting a huge increase in surface area, which would clean the air and the room even quicker. I don't think I probably need it for this size room because this seems to be doing a good enough job for me. Something to think about. You don't need to build it in this, which to me is quite a big, like bulky box. I was hoping to suspend this from the ceiling, but once I saw actually kind of the size of it, once you've got these filters in it, it's going to be too big to hang from the ceiling. I'm going to be hitting my head on it. So it's just going to have to live on the wall. Bear that in mind, you know, you don't need to build this in this setup where you've got 4 filters on all sides. You just want to maximize the surface area as much as possible. So I love builds like this because it works amazing, much better than the commercial offerings. It's hopefully adding years onto my life. It makes the experience of working in your workshop just much more enjoyable, knowing I'm not breathing in a load of crap that could cause me cancer. So I'll say it again, I highly recommend everyone with a workshop to kind of prioritise building something like this. Or if you're in the US, check out the 3D Handyman Etsy shop. So hopefully you found this build useful. I'll put links in the description to the filters, to the fans, and also to the 3D Handyman YouTube channel and Etsy store. But that is it for today. Please remember to like and subscribe, and I'll catch you later.